Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Anaya, and welcome to the Women's Eye podcast. This is where you will meet fascinating women who are leaving their mark, making a difference, and changing the world. This episode is brought to you by Casco Financial Group in Phoenix, Arizona. Catherine Scrivano is the president of Casco Financial Group, and she started her business to help people create financial strength needed to achieve their dreams. My guest today is a remarkable woman with a remarkable story of grit and grace. Amberly Lago is a health and wellness coach, TEDx speaker, podcaster, and an inspiring voice when it comes to resilience and transformation. Today, I'm going to chat with this best-selling author of True Grit and Grace about her empowering story and how it shows that anyone can experience rock bottom and still find that strength to get right back up. So Amberly Lago, welcome to the Women's Eye podcast. It is so nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you. And wow, what an introduction.
Well,
Oh my
what
goodness,
a
you're
remarkable
so good.
story. Thank
You are
you.
just so good. I'm like, yeah, I told you before we started recording, I was like, I'm learning from you, like tips that you
Oh,
do and everything. But yeah, I'm so grateful to be here with you. So thank you so much for having me on. And my intention is to hopefully share some tips and tools that'll help someone overcome some adversity or just inspire them to keep going. I know it's been a tough time for a lot of us lately.
yes. In fact, I've been wanting to chat with you for quite some time. And with everything that we've all been through in this last year with the pandemic, this seems like the perfect time to talk to you about resilience and inspiration. So, how has this last year been for you? How have you held up?
Well, I thought it was going to slow down a little bit for me. I was like, oh, wow, I can unpack my suitcases. I'd been traveling a lot, speaking at different conferences. And I was like, oh, wow, this will be like a little reprieve. I'll get caught up, maybe write that second book. And boy, was I wrong. It just everything seemed to get busier. All of my events that I was scheduled to go speak at, they one by one just started canceling. And I remember back in March, actually everything shut down March 16th here in LA. That I remember that because that's my birthday and we were supposed to go to dinner. And my husband the night before, I was like, I don't think we should go to dinner. He's like, nope, I called the restaurant. They're going to be open. And he woke up the next day. I said, no, everything is shut down. We're shut down.
Almost overnight, right?
Yeah, it was wild. And was like, everything okay? Okay, this canceled, that canceled, one by one, things started to get, like in-person events became virtual events. But I remember I had an event scheduled out in October, and I remember they canceled it like at the end of March, or it was in April. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, we're not going to be in that for this COVID thing isn't going to last that long. And I was like, wow, that was like, okay, time to, really figure out what next steps are. And so I immediately, the week of the pandemic, switched because I still have clients that I see in person, and I
Mhm.
started seeing everyone through Zoom. We were talking before we started recording, and I told you that I had written my book by hand. I had handwritten my book, and I was so impressed with your technical skills of taking a picture on the screen and stuff like that, because I didn't even own a computer like 4 years ago. And so it was a lot to learn to switch everything over virtually. My office building shut down. No one was allowed in the office. So I moved my office. This is my daughter's old bedroom, which became my office. Ordered lights right away, just got everything set up for my home. And, I think resilience is throughout the process of struggles, and when things don't go as planned, it's really making connections that count and having
Mhm.
conversations that matter. And it's finding your laughter and joy, um, even during or throughout difficult times. It's your ability to pick yourself up again and again. And the only reason I've been talking about resilience for so long is because I have failed so many times. I have fallen so many times. In fact, we had an earthquake last night here in LA. Well, it was at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. And my husband had fallen asleep on the couch and he ran up the stairs
What a wake up call.
and he thought I fell because it like
Oh,
was a loud bang. The house
mhm.
shook. It was kind of a loud bang. He thought I had fallen. And I'm like, oh man, that is some past trauma because
Yes.
his first thought is, oh, I fell because I was on crutches and bedridden and all these things for so long that it's still, it kind of made me sad that that's his first thought, that I fell, you know. But
Well,
I was like, no, it was an earthquake. It wasn't me this time.
well, I do want to talk a little bit about what you have been through and the resiliency that you talk so much about and you help people through so much. You've dealt with chronic pain and yet you discovered how to live life to the fullest with resiliency and hope. And I think a lot of us rediscovered that if we didn't already have that in the last year, learning how to pivot, learning how to pick ourselves back up. What does resilience mean to you?
Well, I think what resilience means to me is definitely not bouncing back. You know, if you look in the dictionary, it says to bounce back. And for me, there was no going back. I mean, I was hit by an SUV while riding my motorcycle home from work. And when I woke up out of a coma, they wanted to amputate my leg. I had a 1% chance of saving it. I had, through a lot of prayer and amazing doctors and nurses and a lot of grit, they were able to save my leg, but it took 34 surgeries. And so for me, resilience is being able to pick yourself back up again and again and again, no matter what. We're all going to fall, we're all going to fail sometimes, but it's getting back up again and deciding that you want to have a life of joy. I think it's a willingness. And so for me, you mentioned, yeah, I live in pain every day from a nerve disease called complex regional pain syndrome. So 34 surgeries was a lot, and it was months, months in the hospital and being bedridden for months, and going from being an elite athlete to all of a sudden I've got bed sores. I've lost 20 pounds of muscle. I can't even use the bathroom on my own. And so for me, resilience was really about my ability to find purpose and be of service and shift my perspective with gratitude. Because it would have been easy to spiral down into depression. That's where I was headed. And when it started getting really bad, and when I realized I was going to be in pain for the rest of my life, I was like, oh, I better do something quick to get myself out of this funk. And I think that once we realize we have a choice in how we respond to things, we are in the driver's seat of our life. Then it puts us in that driver's seat and it gives us our power back. So yeah, we may not have a choice in circumstances, whether or not, COVID shuts us down, whether or not there's an earthquake or not, but we do have a choice in how we respond to it. And I think that, by the grace of God and with a lot of grit, I've been able to get through a lot. And I think we all have that superpower of resilience within us, but it is a willingness every day to get up and decide that you want more out of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that you do talk about turning pain into purpose. We've all dealt with some kind of pain at some level in different forms, but you talked about how you refused to have your leg amputated. You saved your leg. How did you know that your leg could be saved? I mean, where did that knowing come from? Or did you know and you felt it? Well, what was it?
Well, when they said, well, we're going to have to amputate, your leg is like a war wound, you only have a 1% chance of saving it. And I thought, oh, well, then there's still a chance.
There's still a
So
chance.
I focused on the 1%. I focused on what I heard was there's still a chance. You have a 1% chance, so there's still hope. And sometimes that's all we need, is that little glimmer of hope to carry us through. And I think in order to be resilient, it's very important what we put our focus on. If we're always focused on what's not going right or what we don't have, or we're comparing ourselves to somebody else who we think has it all figured out, well, most of the time they don't. But if we just focus on what we're grateful for, it really shifts our perspective into what we can do and what we do have. It's really been alchemy for me. And so that's what I did in the hospital. Every morning was, I didn't know if that day was, well, is this the day that they're going to end up taking my leg? I could wake up from this surgery with one leg. And I just would focus on getting through one day at a time and what I could do. So I didn't worry about what I couldn't change, that I was stuck there in the hospital. I would think about, well, what can I do? And so what I could do was I could eat as healthy as I could to control my blood sugar, because if your sugar levels get high, the chance and risk of infection is greater. And so I thought, I can control that. I can control what I eat. I can cut out carbs and sugar and everything. And let me tell you, that hospital food's pretty bland. So thankfully I had some friends bring me some organic, fresh vegetables and stuff like that. I could probably be like a food critic for all the hospitals in the Los Angeles area, because I've been in every single one of them at one time or another. And it's funny because I have friends that are like, hey, I have to get this surgery. Can you recommend a doctor? I'm like, do you need it for your knee, foot, ankle, toes, hand? What? I got a good doctor for every body part. So
you're kind of the go-to person, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've been through a lot because of the pain. So what is it that finally worked to get you through that pain? Because I'm sure you had some really tough days.
Oh yeah. I mean, my pain, this disease is ranked highest on the pain scale. So that means it hurts worse than having an amputation or passing a kidney stone or having a baby. And I mean, I've passed a kidney stone and had a baby naturally. And I can tell you that there are moments that, yes, it does hurt worse. And to know that, well, there's no known cure. It's kind of baffling. We haven't figured out how to cure this. I mean, there are treatments. So I tried every kind of treatment, from ketamine infusions, spinal stimulators, spinal blocks, Eastern, Western medicine. I mean, you name it. I was a good candidate. I mean, I was anybody that said, try this, it'll get you out of pain. Healers. I mean, anybody, I didn't care what they did or who, if they said they could get me out of pain, I was like, okay, let me try it. And at one point I was on 73 homeopathic medications and 11 different prescriptions at one time, and nothing was working for my pain. And so I thought, well, screw all of this. I'm just going to stop taking all the medicine. I am going to power my way through this, and I'm going to try to stuff that pain down and ignore it. And that led me to really a road of darkness, because when nothing was working, I started drinking and to self-medicate. And I thought, gosh, this isn't the healthiest thing to do, but this is pretty good. Why didn't the doctors just tell me to have a glass of wine? I mean, it helped me stuff I felt so inadequate. I felt ugly from all my scars. I felt unworthy. I was out of work. So it helped me stuff all that down too. And it worked until it didn't.
Correct.
And by the grace of God, I've been sober as of March 13th for 5 years. But that
Congratulations.
pain, thank you. I mean, I was never that girl. I was a go-getter. I was the achiever. I have a lot of addiction in my family, but I was like, I'm so different. Well, let me tell you, addiction doesn't discriminate. Adversity doesn't discriminate, and pain is pain. So whether you have physical pain or emotional pain, if we don't let those feelings rise to the surface and embrace them, and even ask ourselves, what is this pain trying to teach me? How can I get through this? Then it's going to come out in every aspect of our life. It drives us in every way, the way we lead, the way we parent, our careers, our relationships, every way. And so for me, I couldn't suck it up. I couldn't stuff it down anymore. And it got me to the point where I just didn't want to live anymore.
Mm.
And I really
Well,
had those thoughts of, my kids could find another mom. I had guilt and shame about it, but I was like, I didn't know how I could make it through. And it wasn't until I got I always had, grew up a Christian, but I'd kind of lost that connection with my higher power. And it wasn't until I started really asking for help from God, from my family, from now my sober sisters, friends, instead of trying to hide my pain, I
mhm.
acknowledged it. And that's the first step, I think, is really some self-awareness, some self-acceptance, which was hard.
Mhm.
And then you could start to take action steps to feel better and do better.
So, was that empowering enough then at that point that you decided, you know what? Maybe part of my purpose in all of this is that I have to share this with others who are in pain. I have to share how I've gotten from one point to the next.
Well, I tell you what, if I find anything that works for pain, I will shout it off the rooftops. I mean, I have people that come up to me almost daily with a new product or pill or whatever, and they want me to, sponsor it on my podcast or whatever. And I'm like, I won't share anything that I haven't tried myself and that doesn't really work for me. And I don't think that there's any magical pill or anything that you can take. I think it's a mind, body, spirit transformation. I think in every way, when you're dealing with something that's so big, that just so painful, and that pain, whether it's a big emotional pain, I mean, I've been through divorce, I've been through sexual, abuse as a kid, I've been through a lot of painful situations, but um, physical pain causes emotional pain as well. And when you're going through that, it's not just one thing that I do. It is every day having a ritual where I set aside time for me to meditate, to pray, to set my intentions, I have a gratitude practice. And I say practice because sometimes it's hard. It's hard to
Mhm.
be grateful when you're struggling sometimes, but there is always something to be grateful for. And I have an accountability partner. So I think it's really important to have somebody that will hold you accountable. And it's important to surround yourself with people that are inspired and passionate, and they want to see you rise. They're not trying to hold you down. And it's weird because, I mean, it's so crazy. I actually had some friends that when I was down and out, they were okay with that. They were like,
Mm.
oh, well, I guess you're down, aren't you? And then as I started to climb up out of the hole and like stand on my own 2 feet again, I lost some friendships. It's weird. So I think when you're going through a hard time, you really find out who your true blue friends are. You want people who are going to fan your flames, who you're excited about. And I think a good way to tell if somebody's one of your true blue friends that you really love is if somebody calls you and you see on your phone their name pop up, what's that first feeling you feel? Is
Oh,
it,
I like that.
is it, oh, good, Catherine's calling me? Or is it, oh gosh, what do they want? Then
Mhm.
if they're like a puppy upper or a doggy downer. And one other quick thing I'll share about that is I just interviewed Glenn Stearns. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's amazing. He is from underdog to the undercover billionaire. And he
Mhm.
said, I mean, we just talked this morning. He said, there are balcony friends and there are basement friends, and they're both okay. But the basement friends they're your kind of your comfort zone. They get a little bit uncomfortable when they see you starting to do bigger things and step out of your comfort zone and go for bigger, better things. And they want to keep you down there with them. So it makes them feel comfortable. Whereas, your balcony friends are the ones that are like, yeah, they're cheering you on, like, come on up here, get in the balcony, let's have some fun. And so I'm like, I like that. I want to hang out with my balcony friends, and hopefully those basement friends will come on up too.
Well, there's so much to be said about the energy that we surround ourselves with. And we probably learned the difference between balcony and basement friends in the last year. I know I have.
Uh-huh.
And
It's
so,
so true.
right?
Yeah.
It just in how many people called to check up on you, during this last year when we weren't able to see each other, and that's all you could do is FaceTime or call. So I think we all learned a little bit about not just ourselves, but each other. And when you talk about giving yourself grace, I think that's where that comes in with grit and grace and leaning into that hope and leaning into that faith. What are some of the most powerful messages that you like to share with people who are trying to get through what might be, as you've referred to on your website and in your book, their greatest challenge? Because it may not, like you said, be physical, it could be emotional. Is it the same powerful message? And what is that?
Yeah, that you're not alone. You are not alone. So if you're listening, or I don't know if this is going to be video, if you put this on YouTube or not,
Yes,
if
both.
you're okay. Okay. Oh, let me fix my hair. No, I'm kidding. No, but in all seriousness, when I was really struggling, just knowing that I wasn't alone is what gave me hope to keep going forward. I mean, I remember when I first admitted that I had a problem that I needed to really address. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, here I went from drinking, and I remember thinking, well, this isn't the healthiest thing, but if it's what I have to do. And then remember going, I want more out of life. This is not the life that I'm meant for. How did this happen? And I really thought, how did a good girl like me end up like this? And I remember wanting to help, and I Googled a 12-step program and went to a meeting, which was the scariest thing. I mean, that was really scary for me. There
You're
was
so
so much,
vulnerable.
and I just had so much shame, and first of all, everybody there had the same problem as me. So I don't know what made me, but that's the thing, you think you're the only one struggling, and everybody's going to look at you or judge you when they're all focused on themselves and trying to get better too. And I remember that feeling of, oh, other people struggle with this too. So if you're listening, just know whatever you're going through, there's somebody out there that's struggling with the same thing. So knowing you're not alone, what has helped me through that is admitting to myself that I needed help and then asking for it. And asking for help it can save your life. It did mine. It can make you feel connected, and you'd be surprised how many people, you will make more meaningful connections when you just reach out for help and you do get a little bit vulnerable. But it's really reaching out to somebody who you love and trust.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they can help you. But sometimes if you don't have that, I tell you, I've made some meaningful connections on Instagram. I've got people that
Yes.
DM me that they're like, hey, I had no idea that you were sober and I'm struggling. Can you talk? And I'm like, yeah, meet me, on Zoom or a meeting. Or I've got people that have reached out and they're like, wow, you're the first person I've met that has complex regional pain syndrome, that works out and that works hard and wants to do something with their life. Thank you for doing that. And so you meet your tribe of people, but I also say, make sure when you're sharing um, on social media that you're sharing from a scar and not an open wound. Because let me
Mm.
tell you, if I would have shared, I did a dance video on TikTok. My daughter told me I was too old for TikTok. So I was
So
like,
did
oh,
mine.
I'm like, so I'm getting on there. If I'm too old, I'm definitely getting on there.
Now you've challenged me, right?
Yeah, I'm getting on. And I did a dance video and tap danced. It was the first time I ever tap danced again since my motorcycle accident. And yeah, my leg is scarred and it looks pretty crazy. And some people were grossed out. And
Mm.
one guy was like, don't post videos like that. It makes me want to throw up. I am
Wow.
okay in my scars. I really am, because I know what my body has done just to be able to walk. It's a miracle that I can walk on this leg, and it's a miracle how powerful the human spirit is and our body's ability to heal. So it took me a long time, but I can now look at my leg with love and compassion and empathy. Whereas, before I felt that way too. Ooh, it's ugly. That's scary. Put it away. But I think when, people think that it's this transformation is like overnight and it's easy. And also a lot of times people want a transformation, but they don't want to go through the work. And it took a lot of work and years. I mean, I wasn't on social media for years. I was really recovering. So I was trying to heal. I was, in therapy. I was reading self-development books. I was journaling every day. I was talking to friends. I was going to 12-step meetings. I was barely like hanging on by a thread. So I would say also don't get caught up in that comparison game. That's something that is hard for anybody, whether you're struggling with a chronic illness and that's why I'm not in a lot of support groups for chronic illness, because I was in some groups where it was like people trying to prove who had it worse or
Oh.
and it's like, no, I'm not here to compare. I'm here to cheer you on. I'm here to say we all got this together and we're stronger together. It's not about comparison. It's about doing our best.
Well, we talk a lot here on the Women's Eye podcast about the importance and value in sharing one's story. So I just want to thank you so much for not only sharing your story, but encouraging other people to be vulnerable with their own stories and to be authentic and share theirs as well. So you've given people a lot of hope, grit and grace, definitely. And I thank you so much for just being an inspiring light in this world. Definitely you have found your purpose.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just so honored to be here. And yeah, I'd love to hear from people if you want to reach out to me at amberlylago.com, or I hang out a lot and do silly videos in my story at Amberly Lago Motivation on Instagram.
Perfect. Okay. And if you all didn't have a chance to write that down, you can find out everything you need to know about Amberly at thewomenseye.com. I also want to let you know, since we were on the subject of books, that The Women's Eye has a book. It's called 20 Women Changemakers. You can shop for it wherever you buy books and at changemakersbook.com. Also, our newest book is 20 Women Storytellers. Amberly, I think we need to get you in there for the next one. It's coming out soon, and you can find more about it at womenstorytellersbook.com. Amberly, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Women's Eye podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Catherine Anaya. Until next time, remember, it's the world as we see it.